Day 5, England against North Africans, Tunisia. England progress from a group containing Scotland, Malta, Lithuania, Slovenia and Slovakia. They led by a massive 8-point margin, scoring 18 goals, conceded only 3. They only drew away in Slovakia and Scotland in a memorable game, which many will never forget, for 2 fantastic free kicks. England arrived at this tournament with the least experienced team since 1962. They were young, fast and athletics. England came to this tournament in very good form. They had, in 6 friendlies, they'd only conceded 2 goals. They hadn't lost for a year, in fact. Southgate, the England manager, had played in the 1998 2-0 victory over today's opponents. And most of the 3,000 fans that were here, 3,000 fans here today, were hoping to see much of the same. But interestingly, England had drawn 3 of their last 4 opening tournament matches. On this same day, in 1996, they defeated the Dutch 4-1 at Wembley. Many of their fans were looking for much of the same today. And they came with a new captain. The captain was the Tottenham striker Harry Kane, at 24 years old, who was the youngest captain ever for the country. He would be the talisman who the nation would look to. Like Tunisia, making their 4th ever appearance at the tournament. They had the longest sequence without victory at this tournament in 11 games. So from 11 games, ranging up to 40 years, when they last won against Mexico 3-1 at the 1978 World Cup. Like Tunisia were a very rigid team, hard to break down. They sat deep and effective on counter-attacks, very organised, balanced, and they were a team without no stars. 7 of their side were born in France. In fact, they were a fairly relatively young team. They were fortunate they came out of a group, a very fortunate group, and their most stern test came from the Democratic Republic of Congo, but they overcame that without too much resistance. They do have injury concerns at the moment with several of their stars. One of their stars, Kazri, didn't quite make it at Sunderland. So yeah, so it was sure to be a test for the side from North Africa that was looking for their 2nd win in World Cup tournament history. Now, in regards to the game, Lingard came very close to giving England the early lead, but the outstretched leg of the keeper denied the opportunity when Lingard in fact should have actually scored. From the resulting corner, Maguire gets in the header and the keeper does extremely well to touch the ball over the bar. So no, England was certainly buzzing, showing pace. Like Tunisia, just sitting very deep, and they were very, very unsettled. They were totally unawares of the movement of the England forwards, just zooming in and out. They were cutting in the Tunisian defence with such precision, the passing, the movements, everything. So they were struggling, and the English themselves was showing great passing ability, movement. But then from then on, they slowly started to settle, starting themselves to pass the ball pretty well themselves. But then free flow in England weren't about to be denied. There was a good save from Stone's header, but lying in wait a few yards out was Harry Kane to touch the ball home. England looked like they were on their way. The Tunisian keeper, in only his 4th game, looked in trouble, and he received some treatment on the line. He'd been struggling since he made the save from Lingard earlier in the match. So eventually he was replaced by Fakir instead of the keeper that was challenging Fakir. Not Fakir. They didn't choose the second the deputy for the number one keeper. So that was that. So it was all England, and for England, so the new keeper was brought into some early action. Mustafa being forced into holding a very spectacular drive from Henderson. Then what followed was a very, very bad miss from Lingard, given too much time at the far post. His effort bouncing over from close range, and when he had the option, he totally failed to pick out some colleagues that were inside the area waiting, at least 3 of them. Then from looking out of it, like there was a threat from Tunisia, like Kazri suddenly finding his feet, but then a chance that had come totally unexpected. Tunisia given the opportunity to equalise when Walker was adjudged to have elbowed his opponent, and so a good chance from the spot which Sassi completed. He very well by placing the ball low into the corner, and so Tunisia unexpectedly were on level terms. And then it almost got worse when Dele Alli looked to be struggling, and it looked like he was going to come off, like Delph was on standby, but it didn't happen. Then there was a scramble in the box. It was a total comedy of errors, like the ball ending with a missed kick from Stones, and Kane, the captain, being wrestled to the ground. It was amazing that it looked a clear penalty. So then, and then it was Lingard again. His effort was blocked before soon after an effort was touched around the keeper, and it went on to the outside of the post. And Tunisia still displaying vulnerability at the back, but they somehow went in at half time on level terms. The first 20 minutes from England had been exhilarating. The passing, the energy, the intensity, but Tunisia had shown their resilience in a recent friendly when they were losing 2-0 to Portugal, and they came back to draw 2-2. So they've always been resilient, and that's a feature of their play. There was a confident look about Tunisia in the early stages of the restart. It was definitely a low-key return for England. There was lack of momentum in their play. Kane was manhandled again. Unbelievably, it looked a clear Stonewall penalty. How long would it go before the referee would make a decision in England's favour? But Tunisia were very fortunate to get away with such a incident once again. Like Tunisia again, once still shown resilience, still showing their resilience, and so they continued from where they left off. England still not where they started or left off at the end of the first half. Still great work ethic from the North Africans, just as usual. And then there's not much invention from England. A lot of movement sideways and backwards, but not where they were required to go, which was forward and try and win the game. Rashford replaced Sterling. He'd have been a bit of a lucky on debuts. He'd scored several times on debuts. Maybe he'd score on his World Cup debut. He replaced Sterling, who hadn't scored for 2.5 years, and he was pretty abject in this game. Tunisia responded with Ben Omar coming on in place of one of his colleagues. It showed their intent, which was to slow it down without doubt. England suddenly went up a notch, and Tunisia very content to sit back. They made a lot of impeding challenges, and play was being stopped very frequently. England somewhat energised. Loftus-Cheek, brought on as Ali finally left the field, not before time. As Tunisia were going more defensive with another change, they went more defensive with another change, like Khalifa making an entrance. England were wondering where the inspiration would come from. Time was running out. They were on the verge of dropping 2 valuable points. And Rashford somehow failed to pull the trigger when the ball was dragged across goal. Perhaps he got a call from behind. But then their saviour arrived just as the game moved into stoppage time. The corner came over, and at the far post from the flick was Harry Kane to head in, just nipping and heading the winner. England were off the hook. Relief to the nation. They had 60% of the possession, and they just about pulled this off. They just about deserved victory. Tunisia would now be up against it with Belgium to come next. And their plan scuppered right at the end, and England would go into the game against Panama in high spirits.